Yo, okay. Yo.
This man's name is literally Wolfgang. How savage.
Ay, all I bitch do is your mess. Ay, taking my in my pants. Ay, my bitch don't love me no more. Ay, she kick me out on life, bro.
Yeah, what's going on YouTube? It is Wolfgang here. Today we are going to be covering Blanka's changes in the recent patch for Street Fighter 6. I've seen a lot of people be a little concerned about whether or not the character is still strong. Some misconceptions about him being like dumpster tier, you know, like overly nerfed, not deserving of whatever he got in comparison to everybody else. And I think it's just a whole bunch of bull, personally. So what we'll be doing now is we'll be covering over the things that got adjusted and got nerfed and buffed and whatever, right? So one of the main things that actually got adjusted for Blanka was the fact that he had throw invincibility on his hop. And I'm gonna be honest, I had no idea that was even a thing that Blanka had. I did not know that on frames 12 to 22 of surprise forward hop, he was throw invincible. I had no idea. I'm not gonna lie. So from what I was told from the other Blanka players, what this does is it targets the corner setup that he usually has. That involves throwing down a doll, doing OD electric, doing dash, and then a delayed hop to bait players who want to delay tech. Like that. I feel like in any other situation, this particular setup, it all depends on whether or not you're willing to catch them teching or not. And to be honest, I feel like this might also be a timing issue with timing your hops, simply because you can still go behind them while their throw doesn't autocorrect, as long as you time it correctly. See, they still get hit if they whiff their throw. So I don't know if it's a placebo and like maybe like I'm doing it correctly. I don't do this setup all that often. I'm gonna be honest with you. I never really went for this setup. I would see other Blanka players do it, and I understand why it's strong, but me personally, I never went for it. So I guess this change in particular doesn't really target me like that. You know, I might be a little biased, but I still think that this is more or less a nothing burger change because he's still strong in other areas. The second change he got was, and this is probably the biggest change that I know a lot of Blanka players were dreading, but I personally was already kind of expecting it, and it's the drive reduction on his SA2. What that means is when Blanka activates his SA2, Lightning Beast, what used to be doing a lot of drive gauge reduction on block with his Blanka balls prior to canceling into them and, you know, doing cannons and stuff like that. Light and medium ball, the drive reduction went from 7,500 to 4K, and heavy ball went from 10K to 6K. So if I was to do heavy ball right here, that still does a full bar. That's 10K, right? 10K drive. With SA2, it goes down to 6K instead of 10K. I'm gonna be honest. This is probably an adjustment, or I guess you could say a nerf, that really doesn't bother me all that much when you consider just how strong this super still is. Will the 7,500 to 4K and the 10K to 6K add up over time? Like, will it actually matter in the grand scheme of things? Probably. But the way you can utilize this move or this super activation, it's still really strong and neutral. And I think that's one thing a lot of players are not given enough credit, is that Blanka's neutral is still very good if you're good at playing neutral. He still has really strong mind games. He still has a very oppressive SA2 that can dish out damage with the right routes. His damage didn't get nerfed. His setups didn't get nerfed, outside of a couple that I'll get into very soon. He's still a very strong character, even with his drive gauge reduction nerf. And he actually has a block string that I'll get into later as well that allows you to quote unquote bypass this nerf, as long as you're good enough with your execution and situational awareness. The third adjustment, which was doll. This, outside of SA2, was something that I think should have already been a case for the character. And basically what happens is, before, when you threw out doll, right, it takes a minute to channel. And channeling means that when Blanka activates it with an electricity-based move, it spins for a few frames before it starts walking. While it's spinning, if Blanka got hit at any point while it's channeling, then the doll would go away. But once it starts walking or starts bouncing, if it's OD electric or OD electrified move, then it would be considered desynced from Blanka. And even though Blanka would get hit, the doll will still be active and can interrupt anything that the opponent would try to do. So the adjustment to this is no matter what time Blanka gets hit, whether the doll is fully activated or not, it goes away if Blanka gets hit. And it looks like this. See? The doll still goes away even though Blanka has already activated it. If he gets hit, it goes away now. That's the new change to the doll. Those are the only 3 nerfs or adjustments that Blanka got that you can say impact the character's strength. what the changes mean outside of what I just showed you, right? Let's go back to hop for a sec. Even though Blanka loses throw invincibility on his hop, he still has plenty of mix that doesn't involve that route. And honestly, I think it's even better if you were to get the doll on the opponent. It's better to prioritize burning out the opponent anyways, rather than just going for like a simple mix. I honestly think that the mix you get off of doll in the corner should be things of like, you know, prioritizing the high-low mix-up that he has, whether it's doing an auto-timed overhead or a delayed low. If I was Blanka in the corner here, right, and I do doll in the corner, light doll, and I have Luke on block, and I do this. All of that was a true block string. Luke just lost 2.85 drive. That's a lot of drive meter. And you'd probably be like, okay, well, sure, you're not getting a hit, or you're not netting any guaranteed damage off your mix or anything. But if you consider how plus you are for this, that's +4 if I don't do the light kick. So I can like frame trap with like heavy kick or stand medium kick, right? And I can get something out of it. Or I can just wait after the OD electric if they're gonna mash or do something crazy. And while this is very meter reliant for Blanka to continue his pressure, you don't even have to like think of it as, oh, you're one step closer to bringing yourself out. That's where sometimes you would either have to go back to neutral or try to establish yourself in like a certain range where you're not really risking yourself. And that's another reason why Blanka's mobility is so good, because he can just get out of dodge whenever he needs to with like back hop, back jump, you know, mixing up cow crouch approaches that make the opponent hesitate. There's a lot of things you can do that doesn't involve you just like throwing yourself to the wolves just because you're low on meter. That's one of Blanka's biggest strengths in his neutral is his mobility. The ability to just go in and out whenever he feels like it. As long, you know, obviously he's posing a risk by doing that, but it depends on when you do it and how you do it. That's just how the character is built.
I'm different, especially like with how I'm built.
This is still a really good thing. See, I'm still applying pressure even without having to like hop through them or anything like that. I'm just keeping them cornered. I'm keeping the pressure on them, making them guess whether or not they should press or jump or backdash or mash or whatever. You still have good presence here. Now, one thing that I'll segue into that I know did impact Blanka a lot, unfortunately, even when you're showing these options, is the fact that drive reversal can now be a problem now, since doll goes away when Blanka gets hit no matter what. That's something that coincides with the changes of getting hit or like his corner pressure. If Blanka got the hit here and he somehow got you into the corner and he goes into a doll mix up, he can either go for a meaty throw, right? Or he can apply pressure with OD electric like this, right? Let's say they do drive reversal on the second attack, which in this case is OD electric, right? You can still block after OD electric. Let's say, for example, you're committing to an option and you're telling yourself that you're not going to block. Let's say you want to do the whole string where you do like, you know, stand fierce and everything. See, now the doll is gone because you overextended rather than just allowing to see what the opponent was going to do. That might be a little annoying to get used to over time, but something you do also have to remember is that you are plus 31 when you do OD electric with the doll over top of them. It'll be a true block string no matter what. So if they drive reversal anytime after your OD electric, you can kind of just wait. And if they do drive reversal, you can get like a pickup from that, right? It's just not as like goofy as it used to be. When you would just do it and then they do drive reversal, but then the doll still punches them and you go back in with OD ball and you get an insane pickup with, you know, heavy up ball and mad damage. You don't get that goofy situation anymore. And honestly, I think that's fine. I don't think that should be defining the character in terms of bypassing the rules of what the opponent would like to do to get out of the situation. They mentioned that in the notes as well, that Blanka had a lot of setups that just bypassed a lot of defensive options in the game. So they wanted to address that, you know, to give the opponent a chance to fight back. And I think that's fair. I don't think that's like crippling the character by any means. He's still a really strong character despite that. So as long as you can work around that, you'll be totally fine. Let's talk about the good things for Blanka. Let's talk about that. A couple of new buffs that he got. Crouch Heavy Punch having a new purpose outside of just punish counter or regular hit. So now Blanka could do things like Crouch Heavy Punch, and if it hits counter hit, then he gets a knockdown. Looks like this. That's actually really good when you consider the Oki that he has. It's plus 40. The other option that Blanka has that requires spending meter is OD Electric, that is also plus 40. The counter hit doesn't matter, it's just showing, you know, that it's the same frame advantage if you do OD Electric. If you drive rush hop after this, you're plus 2, and you're in throw range whether the opponent neutralizes or back rises. You're always in throw range after this. So you basically net yourself Oki. And if you think that your opponent is somebody that likes to neutralize a lot, then that means you can double dash. And you're plus 2. You can also just do dash, drive rush, depending on how far away you are. So it looks like this. This is really, really good for Oki, and this makes this button way better than it actually was, because one of the only other ways it was showing its strength was if you got the whiff punish. Now you can just use it in neutral, and if it catches somebody's startup or if it stops an opponent's attack, right? Like if it's counter hit, then you get Oki now, rather than just standing there if you just poke them with it. It has a better usage now. Before, it was only really punish counter, which was still good. Your neutral had to be really nice to like net the whiff punish with a 15 frame normal that was really slow and could be jumped in on. But when you got it, and you double dash, you're plus 42, which gives Blanka his safe jump magic number. But Crouch Fierce, getting a knockdown or counter hit is really good. That's really good. That's good for like a multitude of reasons. Being able to get Oki from anywhere on the screen, you know, being able to dry rush hop and cover both rises and be in throw range, that's insane. That's a really good buff for him. Oh yeah, this is a huge one actually. This is one of my favorite buffs that they gave Blanka this season. With forward heavy punch, usually what would end up happening is with this normal, if you use it at the right spacing, forward heavy punch should hit on the second active frame at the spacing. So it will look something like this. You see, if you look at the frame meter here, it hits on the second active frame, like right here. It used to be plus 21 on average, depending on the spacing. But the new buff that they gave to forward heavy punch is that it has 7 frames more advantage on hit now than what it originally had. It allows you to do things like this. Now you're plus 9 on dash rather than plus 2. And plus 2 on dash would be cool if the opponent neutralized, but since they're back rolling here, it wouldn't really matter that much. However, one thing he can do if Wild Nail connects, whether it's on hit or on block, he can cower crouch. He can always do that. But this is a buff for that because now he can do this and be plus 3 on both rises and in throw range. That is a huge buff to this normal. See, I'm even side switching for a crazy mix if I want to go for a crazy mix at this range. That's a left right if you decide to neutralize. There are also a lot of players who like to neutralize against Blanka, so you can use this to your advantage depending on who you're fighting. You get the idea. So, along with those two interactions, you also have an auto-timed airball from Rage Jump if you were to do this. At first glance, if you're fighting against somebody that has a DP and they're aware that you're going to go for this Rage Jump ball option, there's a chance you'll get hit with a Wake Up DP. But also remember that you do have other options to bait their response. That's what the opponent would try to do against you, right? But you can do things like this. A lot of people assume that Blanka standing up from cower crouch looks like he's jumping. Sometimes hop looks like you're jumping at them. So you can counter hit them if they think you're trying to jump at them. So this option alone is really, really strong to be able to bait people's response times. One of the things you can get off of OD ball now because of the forward heavy punch range, you can now do this. You can end forward heavy punch. You're plus 25 on hit. So this should allow you to dash to get Oki. So you can do things like, you can do stuff like you can get a jump in. And you're plus 6 on dash. Yeah, that's insane. You're in throw range no matter how they rise. That's really, really, really good. One of the changes to stand medium kick, it is now plus 5 on hit instead of plus 4. If it hits via counter hit, you can now link into wild lift. Usually you can only do this on, if I'm not mistaken, punish counter, but now it works on counter hit. You're probably wondering, like, why would you even go for something like this? The only button that Blanka could really utilize or get most reward out of for checking drive rush was stand heavy kick, right? Because you could link into SA1 after interrupting a drive rush. But if you don't have any meter or you're not willing to spend the meter, then you only got like 960 damage on the counter hit. But if you were to try to use stand medium kick to check drive rush, then it'll probably look something like this. That's if you have a read on it. See. The last thing I will touch on is the big SA2 change and what that means moving forward for Blanka. So the block strings that I was talking about earlier, on Blanka's side, it involves a lot of situational awareness for your opponent standing versus crouching whenever they're blocking, and doing just frame cannons. Usually, you would do stand heavy punch into medium ball. If you do OD electric or OD ball activation, you're +9, which means you can go into stand medium kick as a block string. When you do stand medium kick, you can buffer medium ball because it jails. And one thing to keep in mind about SA2 for people who don't know, you do not need charge to cancel your special cancelable normals into charge moves. You can just do stand medium kick, back forward medium punch with no charge. That's like the benefit of the super. So if I do this, you can see in my virtual controller that I just did stand heavy punch, back forward medium punch, right? If the opponent is stand blocking, then your down forward cannon will be a true block string. So it'll look something like this. See, you can see by the yellow frames here on the hit stop up until the very end of the string that it was a true block string, that he couldn't like mash or parry out of it. And that's a good thing. If they crouch block, however, the cannon is a 2-frame gap. Going from here on this first highlighted frame to the second frame, that counts as a 2-frame gap. That means that the opponent, if they're ready, can stand block to perfect parry the cannon. And you have to stand block because it is a mid, not a low. You have to stand block to perfect parry it. See? As you can notice, because he's crouch blocking, he got an imperfect parry, not a regular perfect parry. So I have to stand block the cannon after crouch blocking the medium ball. Because if I crouch block the medium ball, that allows me to stand block to perfect parry the cannon that's following, right? So it looks like this. With that in mind, Blanka doesn't always have to commit to the cannon. He can just do like an empty medium ball to bait parry or a delayed cannon to mess with like any other options, right? That just comes with the nuances and how nebulous SA2 is as a result. There is no true answer as long as a Blanka player is aware of what's happening and can mix up their own options. There's an answer for every situation, but you're not going to be ready for every situation. That's what makes it a good install super. If you are good, like I said, if you are really good at situational awareness and understanding whether or not your opponent is crouch blocking or stand blocking, you could take advantage of getting free true block strings. And since you're +7, you can go into stand heavy kick and it's a true block string. They just lost 2 drive bars off of just stand heavy punch alone. If you were to do something like stand heavy punch into OD ball activation, you can get this. They almost lost 3 drive bars just because they did stand block. That is a lot of drive gauge still, despite the nerfs. Another thing you can utilize to make this even scarier for your opponent is something that I like to call the just frame cannon. And what the just frame cannon is, after you do medium ball into down forward cannon, down forward and punch, the second cannon is delayed by a couple of frames right before you touch the ground while still maintaining the true block string in between the 2 cannons. And if you time it correctly, instead of being +7, you'll be +8. When you're +8, you can link stand medium kick and it's a true block string which jails the opponent. So it'll look something like this. See where it says +8? I did a just frame cannon there to make that +8. Him stand blocking made everything I did a true block string still. If you can take advantage of the fact that the opponent is sleeping for some reason and they're not crouch blocking, which will happen in a real match, by the way. This is real. This is not just a gimmick. If you are good at confirming that they're stand blocking the medium ball, you can take advantage of that and take even more drive gauge away from them if they were stand blocking. And if you can get the just frame cannon off, that's even better for you because you can basically loop the pressure again. So what's gonna happen is I'm gonna have Luke mash super on block. If for any reason super comes out, that means I mistimed the just frame. See, I was off by a frame. So this is something you can practice. This is like a drill I recommend to Blanka players. If you want to get good at timing your just frame cannons, have your opponent do a reversal level 1 super that's strike invuln. And if your stand medium kick doesn't cause a true block string, that means you got to tighten up on your execution a little bit. You can burn them out in 1 string. It is entirely possible to still burn somebody out from 6 bars to 0 bars. There it goes. True block string. I'm gonna be honest. I definitely think that Blanka, out of all the other top tiers so far, probably got hit with the most nerfs, quote unquote, but his neutral is overall better. And there isn't anything too crazy that other characters received, which like should have a Blanka player be concerned about any matchup difficulties. Maybe Ken, but that's like stretching it a little bit. There's nothing that Ken got that makes you say, oh man, like this matchup is rough now for Blanka when it was already rough to begin with. So, you know, it is what it is. Blanka's still fine. Honestly, in my opinion, in terms of the nerfs that he got, it really just affects the Blanka players who have no neutral. And that's gonna sound a little offensive to some, but if you're an aspiring Blanka player who actually wants to get better at the game, then that doesn't apply to you. Your neutral will naturally get better as long as you are applying yourself with the tools that Blanka has that makes your neutral better, like having good footsies and good, you know, good situational awareness, knowing what and what not to do, knowing when not to panic, etc., not relying on gimmicks that carry you to a certain level until you plateau because the things you want to rely on don't work anymore. Those players are what the nerfs were targeting. Those players, those nerfs were targeting those players, not the ones who actually get rewarded for their decision making. Since Blanka's neutral got better, it shouldn't really matter. You should be fine. But yeah, that's basically it. Hopefully this video gives you a good idea on Blanka's changes and how it affects him for the long run. This patch overall didn't really feel too insane. It kind of felt like a safe patch just to give some characters something new to do or normalize some of the more troublesome top tiers. But it didn't really dunk. They didn't really dunk on anybody, if I'm really thinking about it. And Blanka, despite being the one that probably caught the most strays, is still a really strong character. And I'm sure he'll still prosper for the future. But yeah, that's it really. You know, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. I'll definitely be trying to make more videos like this on my free time. I appreciate you guys' support. This is Wolfgang, and I will catch y'all later.